On June 13th, 1691, a priest named Father Damien Massenet performed the first known Catholic Mass ever done on this river. Father Massenet blessed the river, the San Antonio, because June 13th is the feast day of San Antonio. And as the town grew up around it, we took our name from the river itself. Now, beside us on the right, we are passing in front of St. Joseph's Catholic Church. St. Joseph's was built in 1868 by local German settlers so that they'd have some place they could worship in their native language. To this day, to celebrate their heritage, on the last Sunday of every month, the choir still sings in German. Now, over here on the left, the hotel on the other side of the trees is the Hilton Palacio del Rio. Palacio del Rio is Spanish for River Palace, and it's a few blocks away from a La Quinta Inn. And of course, we all know that La Quinta is Spanish for hotel next to a Denny's. That's not what that stands for? Now, the Hilton there was built for the visitors to the 1968 World's Fair. But 11 months before the fair started, they had already pre-rented every room, but they hadn't started construction yet. That was the problem. So the city took the contract away from the first company. They gave it to a local company called H.B. Zachary because Mr. Zachary guaranteed the city they'd get it done in time for the fair. Now, the way they made that happen, they set up the staging area 8 miles south of here, where each of almost 500 hotel rooms were completely built and furnished. Now, once the rooms were ready for people to stay in, they would load them onto flatbed trucks, roll them up here, and use helicopters and cranes to raise them up and slide them into slots in the side of the wall. And this is the Hilton in front of us on the left. We made the Guinness Book of World Records with this hotel. From the time they started building it to the time it was ready for people to stay here, it only took 202 days to finish. That's the fastest that any building this size has gone up. Now, the modular rooms, the ones that were built off-site, begin just above the 4th floor. The columns between the rooms were the first part that was built. That's where they put the electrical and plumbing work. Then they loaded the rooms by stacking them one on top of the other all the way up to the top. And everyone, if you wonder why I'm stopping the boat, we have a cuteness alert. Right beside us on the right, there is a proud mama duck and a bunch of adorable little babies. Now, if you need to stand up to see them, kids, it's okay. Just be really careful. But right beside us on the right, just kind of swimming around near their mama. The black duck with the white bib is the mama duck.
Over there, they're little babies.
Do you want to see the ducklings, sweetie? You can stand up if you want to. No? Okay. Now, everyone, the section that we're driving into here is called La Vida. La Vida is Spanish for little village. This whole area here was settled in the 1700s by Spanish colonial soldiers. Oh, what's wrong, little guy? Now, today, La Vida is an artisan village. Right up there on the street level for about 4 blocks, there are shops and restaurants and art galleries here. And the 2 restaurants on the left, the buildings that they're in were homes of German settlers that were built here in the 1850s. Now, as we come around the corner, right in front of us is the Arneson River Theater. This is an outdoor amphitheater with enough seating for 800 people. And did any of you see the movie Miss Congeniality? Do you recognize that stage? That's where they filmed the swimsuit competition. So Sandra Bullock was right there on the right. And the 5 bells behind the stage there represent the 5 missions that were built along the banks of the San Antonio River back in the 1700s. And of course, the most famous of those is the Alamo. Now, the little bridge that we're driving under here is called Rosita's Bridge. It was named for Rosita Fernandez. Ms. Fernandez was a singer and dancer who performed on that stage every summer for 26 years. She was also in the movie The Alamo with John Wayne. Now, the buildings beside us on the right are all part of the Briscoe Western Art Museum. Lots of cool stuff here. Now, everyone, I am going to go as fast as I can for a moment. If you look up high into these trees, you'll see why. There's a lot of birds' nests with big gray birds in them or near them. Now, we don't want to be under these birds any longer than we have to, so that's why we're going fast. But once we're past them, I'll slow down. You can look back behind us and you'll see them standing on the branches. There's literally dozens of these birds living here in the cypress trees. They're called yellow-crested night herons. Beautiful birds. They're really big too. Their bodies alone are about this big. Now, they're called night herons because most of them are nocturnal. They rest during the daytime and then they get active when it gets dark. So if you're still downtown when it gets dark this evening, that's when you're more likely to see them along the banks of the Riverwalk. Now, the bridge that we're driving under here is the Presa Street Bridge. Presa is Spanish for dam or barricade. It was named for a dam that used to be right there across the river. And in front of us on the right, this little heart-shaped island is called Marriage Island. We get over 200 weddings a year here. Really pretty spot for it. Now, it's supposed to be good luck to get married here. Now, I can tell you for sure that that works because I've had 3 weddings here already. They all went great. Works like a charm. Now, the bridge that we're driving under here is called the Old Mill Crossing. This is the shallowest part of the river. It's only 2 feet deep right here. And back in the days before modern bridges and cars, this was the safest place to cross the river with a horse and wagon. Settlers would come from miles around just across the river right there.
It's not man-made.
Now, the building directly in front of us with the green tile roof, that's the Bexar County Courthouse. It was built in 1896, and it's the oldest and largest continuously operating courthouse in the state. And here on the right, we have an adorable baby. Hello, sweetheart. Now, on our left, this building with the flag on top is my favorite downtown. This is the Tower Life Building. And if you look up high near the top, see how it looks like there's lions jumping off the edges? Those are gargoyles, but they're also working rain spouts. When it rains here, water flows through the gargoyles, out their mouths and into rain gutters set up at each corner of the building. And if you look a little lower, just above the trees between the first and second floors, there's stone guys making faces at us. Those are called grotesques. And they put them there because they're supposed to scare off evil spirits. Now, the building beside us on the right is the Homewood Suites, but I call it the human terrarium. Everybody wave hi to the humans. Hi, humans! There we go. We keep plenty of food and water here so the humans will come up to the window. But from 1919 till 1963, this building was a pharmaceutical warehouse called the San Antonio Drug Company. And on the other side of this bridge, the green building on the right is the International Center. This used to be the main branch of our public library up until 1998. Today it holds the offices of NAFTA and the San Antonio Convention Bureau. Underneath the building, that's one of the marinas where we park our boats at night. And everyone, if you block the sun with your hand, if you look back over my shoulder, you can see those gargoyles even better from this angle. Now, the green light on the bridge here in front of us doesn't tell me anything about boat traffic. It tells me it's safe to drive over the drawbridge. There's a drawbridge under the water right in front of the boat here. And if you look on the walls on both sides as we go through, the metal scrapings directly beside us, that's where the drawbridge raises and lowers. This is an active working floodgate. When we have heavy rains here, they can raise the drawbridge. It'll seal off this part of the river. That way the water won't get too high and flood the buildings back there. Now, it's a good thing we've got floodgates too, because here in San Antonio, we get exactly 2 kinds of weather, drought and flood. Right now it's drought. It's always drought. Even when it floods, we're in a drought. But when it rains really hard, it's usually pretty dramatic. And in 1921, there was a really big flood here. Water was up about 8 feet above the street level. It destroyed a third of downtown. It was really bad. And the city leaders got together with the Army Corps of Engineers to see what they could do to make sure it never happened again. What they came up with is the section that we're in right here. This is a man-made flood control channel. It was built in the late 20s to connect the two ends of the horseshoe bend of the river. So when we do get high water, they can use the floodgates to close off the entrances to the Riverwalk, force water into the flood channel, and draw it away from downtown. Now, beside us on the right, this is the Drury Plaza Hotel, and people always wonder, what happens to the hotel if you're using the flood channel? The answer is they have their own private floodgates. See the metal runners between the stone columns supporting the building? They have steel doors they can raise and lower to protect the bottom floor from floods. And here on the left, we're passing in front of Main Plaza. Main Plaza is the town square in the heart of the city. When you drive into San Antonio and you see street signs that say how many miles it is, that's measured from Main Plaza because it's literally the center point of town. Now, the Riverwalk was built on the original natural banks of the San Antonio River. The San Antonio River physically begins 4 miles in front of us. It bubbles up from a spring at the University of the Incarnate Word. Then it flows 138 miles behind us, where it meets up with the Guadalupe River and flows into the Gulf of Mexico. And beside us on the right, we're going to turn and go under this green bridge. This bridge is another active floodgate, but it's not a drawbridge. This one works more like a garage door. You can see the gate right there above the bridge. It weighs 3 tons and it takes 15 minutes to fully lower. If you look up as we go under, you'll see it's suspended there. Now, in front of us on the right where those tables are, do you see how it looks like there's a tree growing out of the wall? That's actually 2 trees. The bigger one is a box elder. It's been cut back. The smaller one is a fig tree. And legend has it that during the flood of 1921, those 2 trees were sprigs that floated into a crack in the wall and sprouted there. And here on the left, this is the Drury Inn and Suites. This used to be our old city public service building. This is where everyone in town would go to pay their power bill. But just to give you a frame of reference, during the flood of 1921, water was up to the top of the first floor windows, so this entire area was completely underwater. Now, on the other side of this bridge, on the right in front of where that boat is stopped, we're going to pass in front of the Aztec Theater. The Aztec was built in 1926 as a silent movie house. And you can see there's still a concrete sculpture of an Aztec god sticking his tongue out at us over the entrance. Now, of course, they don't show silent movies here anymore, but they kept the original inner workings of the old theater. They've got them on display in there behind glass. And quick show of hands, who here saw the movie Selena? Well, check out that bridge right there in front of us. That bridge was featured in the movie. That's where they filmed Selena and Chris right after they got married. So Jennifer Lopez was on this bridge, guys. And beside us on the right, this cream-colored building is a luxury hotel and spa called the Mocara. But back in the very early 1900s, this was a business that made saddles and harnesses for horses. It was called the L. Frank Saddlery, and in 1905 they had over 500 employees working there making saddles. And here on the left, this is another luxury hotel. It's called the Omni La Mansione. It was built in 1853 as a school called St. Mary's Academy. Over the years, it became St. Mary's University, St. Mary's Law School, and in the 60s, when they moved their campus to the west side of town, 2 law students at St. Mary's got the money together to buy that building and turn it into a hotel. And everyone, as we come out from under this bridge, we're going to pass in front of a building that's a real live optical illusion. So look left and high. Right as we come out, you'll see it there. Left and high.
It looks flat.
Isn't that wild? It's like a giant wall just standing there. Now, it looks like that because the building is shaped like a triangle in this corner. This is the Nick's Medical Center. When it was built back in 1930, this was the very first fully air-conditioned hospital in the country. Actress Carol Burnett was born here. She's a San Antonio native. And everyone, to the best of my knowledge, that's the only hospital in the state of Texas that has a bar in the basement. That's a Riverwalk thing. Now, the building directly in front of us is the Hyatt Regency Hotel. This is the easiest way to get to the Alamo from this part of the Riverwalk. The Alamo is a block in front of us on the other side of the hotel. And as we come around the corner, in front of us on the left, you can see the river flows into the hotel lobby. There's an atrium area with waterfalls and everything right there inside the hotel, just on the other side of the pond. Now, when they built this hotel, they only made it 16 stories tall. They wanted to be sure it would never cast a shadow over the Alamo. Because even though the Alamo is surrounded by modern buildings, the city is really careful to make sure none of them puts a shadow on our war memorial. And everyone, beside us on the right, this building is the Casino Club. It was built in 1927 as a private social club during the Prohibition era. Today, it's apartments and restaurants, and back in the 70s, famous author Alex Haley had an apartment there. That's the man who wrote the book Roots. And San Antonio actor Tommy Lee Jones used to live there also. You might remember him from Men in Black and The Fugitive. Now, the section that we're driving through here is called River Square. This is where we have the most restaurants in one spot. More than 40 restaurants all in this one area right here. Now, most of these restaurants have their menus posted out front in case you're not sure where you want to eat. And everyone, in front of us on the right, the building there in the corner is the Clifford Building. And if you look there on the balcony, as we get a little closer, you'll see it says Hugman Architect. That's Robert Hugman. That's the man who designed the Riverwalk. There's a bronze bust of him there in the corner also. Now, when the Riverwalk was finished in 1941, Mr. Hugman was the very first person to put his offices right there on the river level. He wanted to show everyone that it was safe from flooding and that businesses could do well here. And speaking of businesses doing well here, the restaurant on the right is Casa Rio. This is the oldest restaurant on the Riverwalk. It's been owned by the same family since 1946. Now, the ducks that are floating around in the water here, I call these ducks the tortilla connoisseurs because they know what they like and they're not after breadcrumbs. Now, there is one particular duck that I want to introduce y'all to. Right in front of us on the left, do you see the duck with the brown chest and the green head? He's standing on the concrete corner looking straight at us. That's Bob. Hi, Bob. Now, Bob the duck is kind of famous around here. Bye, Bob. On really hot summer days, like when it's over 100 degrees, when Bob the duck has had all he can take of the heat, he'll fly up and land on one of the tables back there, and then they'll come out and they'll serve him a margarita. Now, they never ask Bob how he's going to pay for his drink. They just put it on his bill. See, now I was hoping that would quack you up. But I know my jokes are kind of foul, right? See, I gotta break out the corny duck jokes, otherwise it wouldn't be a boat tour. I think they put that in our job requirements. Now, the section that we just turned into here is called the Man-Made Extension. This part was added on to the original Riverwalk when San Antonio hosted the World's Fair here back in 1968. They built it to connect the fairgrounds, which were in front of us, to the original floor of the Riverwalk back there behind us. Now, during the 1968 World's Fair, they used boats like the one that we're on right now to taxi people back and forth between the fairgrounds and the Riverwalk. That was the beginning of our modern day boat services. And everyone, if you look up high and to the right, above that stone wall there, you'll see the Tower of the Americas. The tower was built as the centerpiece for the 1968 World's Fair. At the top of the tower, there's an observation deck and a revolving restaurant. And in front of us on the left, the building with the two towers is the Marriott River Center Hotel. The Marriott River Center Hotel is physically attached to the River Center Mall. The whole River Center complex was built back in the late 1980s. But before they could start construction, they had to do something about the building that was already there. Right where the mall is today, that's where it used to be the old Fairmount Hotel. Now, the Fairmount was built in 1905, so it was considered an historic landmark. That meant that they couldn't just tear it down. Uh-oh. Hang on, I got paper towels for you. They couldn't just tear it down. What they had to do is figure out a safe way to pick it up and move it. And in 1985, that's exactly what they did. Pass these down, sweeties. That's exactly what they did. They used cranes to raise that old 3-story hotel in one big piece. And then they really slowly moved it to its new home 6 blocks away. Now, at the time that they moved the Fairmont Hotel, it was such a big deal that it was shown on national television, and odds makers in Las Vegas took bets on whether it would make it in one piece. But I am very happy to tell you we didn't lose a single brick. We made the Guinness Book of World Records with that one also. It's the biggest building ever moved on air-filled tires. And everyone, this brings us to the end of our tour. Now, I want to thank you all very much for riding with me today. I hope you all enjoyed the tour. And our company says here on the helm, for a job well done, the drivers really do appreciate your tips. And for safety's sake, everyone